To be a slightly informal discussion with several representatives regarding the ACH Facilitator Summit 2020. We want to give you a quick preview and welcome you to the session. And as we introduce our representatives today for this web session, I'll give a few kind of housekeeping notes to those of you who are joining to learn more about the session. There is a chat box feature if you'd like to type in a question. I'm going to ask Rachel to help watch that chat box and kind of raise her hand, so to speak, should there be something to bring up. We're going to spend about a half an hour together, so from the half-hour mark to the top of the hour, and we're going to roll through quite a bit of information, so this can really be an informative session for those of you who are considering attending or maybe passing along information to your fellow trainers, facilitators, program leaders. We hope this will help set the groundwork for you so that you know what to expect in January. This event is being hosted in Dallas, Texas, as you probably know, and there is information available to you, which you've been receiving. Registration is open, and we hope by the end of this 30 minutes, you'll decide you want to join us, as will some of your colleagues back at your local program. Our web session representatives today include the people you may be seeing on the screen if you're joining us for the screen version. We have two ACH faculty members joining us, August Fortin and Jim Bell. Jim is available via video. Why don't you wave, Jim? And August is joining us via phone, and we'll hear from them just shortly. We also have a facilitator or trainer representative present. Cindy George joins us from the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation. She's not only a leader there at the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation who helped to start the program, but Cindy is also a facilitator and goes out into the field to help other clinicians learn these skills, as many of fellow trainers on this web session might share with her. And we're going to then hear also from a program leader who really runs the administrative and logistics pieces to think strategically about making a program run, Catherine Raymond, who also represents the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation. Catherine's joining us via video. Catherine, why don't you give us a wave? Thank you. And we have two ACH staff team leaders, Greta Rossler. Greta, why don't you wave for us? Greta is the Director of Program Strategy and Implementation for ACH, and she'll be helping to spearhead our program leader track this year. And then we also have a very important staff leader, Rachel Porch. Rachel, why don't you wave for our video cams? Rachel is managing the logistics and running the show, so to speak, making sure this is a smooth process for you, and will be available to help out as you get registered. So just to give you a preview of what this summit is about this year, it is about advanced facilitation skills and helping with program leadership strategy. We have a special theme on conversations with colleagues, which is a 2020 initiative ACH is focusing on, so that we can take the relationship-centered skills that you've all come to skillfully lead forward at your institutions and layer on this idea of relationships with colleagues. And so some of the learning objectives are appearing on the screen if you're seeing that version. And we're going to kick off the summit by engaging all attendees in an opportunity to try this 2-hour workshop, which is designed to be an add-on for people who want to take a refresher course that layers on top of the standard relationship-centered course that you've been delivering. The goal is really to think about how we can optimize communication between healthcare colleagues, and to give you an opportunity as an attendee to think about whether or not this program is something you'd like to add into your own local efforts. And to that end, we have several breakout tracks that will happen at the summit. First is a facilitator track, and there are two branches of that. One is focused more generally on enhancing your facilitation skills as a trainer. Cindy's going to speak a little bit to her experience, and she participated in that track. And we this year have a new track for those who want to deliver the Conversations with Colleagues workshop. You come in, you know that's something you're interested in. after the 2-hour experience that we'll all share, then there will be a track to help you deepen your readiness to take this back home with you. And then the program leader track is really an opportunity for those who are leading the strategic efforts at their home institutions to meet other people doing the same thing, and to examine critical success factors. And Catherine and Greta are both going to speak to that in just a moment. The agenda for the summit is available on the website. I'm just kind of showing you a quick image here. We'll have a Power Pack Day on Monday, January 13th from 9 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. Central Time, and it will start with a large group session. We'll transition to the conversation with colleagues, and then we'll spend the entire afternoon really engaged in the breakout tracks for a really interactive experience. And then on Tuesday, we'll be back in our interactive breakout tracks for much of the morning, concluding at noon. So it gives you a chance to have a 1.5-day experience and get back home to your lives by Tuesday evening. So without further ado, I want to hear from our representatives for the rest of our time. And I'd like to start by proposing this question. So the question is, how would you describe the summit experience to someone who might attend for the first time? And I'd like to invite any of our web session representatives to speak up, and to make it easy, I'm going to invite Jim Bell to take first stab at this, and then we'll go to whichever facilitator, maybe one of our phone candidates would like to jump in after Jim. Cindy, maybe we'll hear from you after Jim. So, Jim, let's hear your perspective.
Well, thanks, Laura. So, my experience with the first couple of summits has been, especially running into people who have had a similar travel plans with me right afterward, and even talking with them later on, has been a sense of rejuvenation, maybe re-excitement about the one-day course that they're delivering. Many people seem to be really energized by it. At first, when they get there, they're just blown away by the number of people around the country who are doing the same work, and usually in awe of the skill that they find in their small groups in the room, getting a chance to learn from peers that they didn't know that they had. And it's been a really nice experience, I think, for many of them to be able to find a tribe, so to speak, of people, network and bounce ideas off of, and sort of get reinvigorated.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Jim. I know that rings true from what I hear from others. And Cindy, I know you're joining us as a representative via phone. Would love to give you a chance to unmute and share your perspective about describing this to someone who might attend the first time.
Oh, thank you so much. Can you hear me okay, Laura?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, fantastic. Well, I actually have a lot that agrees with what Jim said. I think I was brand new. I had only taught one workshop before. So when I went in, I think the first thing I thought was, wow, there's this huge community out there that is engaged in seeking to understand one another, and this idea of relationship-centered communication, that has stuck with me throughout our programming as we see beyond. So that was I think the biggest thing that hit me right away. And then being in the small groups, I thought, was a fabulous way to learn from others and their various levels of competency with the skills that I found very helpful. And the extreme support that the facilitator as well as your team members gave, especially again me, when I pushed myself into learning in the deep end and was trying to swim frantically, I knew everyone was behind me, and that generosity and kindness has stuck with me as well.
Thank you, Cindy. And it's really helpful for those listening in to imagine that it's okay to come if you're brand new as a trainer. You'll gain a lot. And if you've been a trainer or a facilitator for several years, it's also a good rejuvenation experience. And Catherine, I wonder what you might offer from your perspective as a program leader who attended for the first time.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Laura. I would echo Jim too and say that it was actually a really fun conference. I I know a lot of us go to different types of conferences that might not be considered as much fun, but it was a really great, intimate sort of setting and a great opportunity to be with a more energized community of people who really understand what this relationship-centered communication is. And it was intimate, but also I think we had a chance to go really in depth with different skills as well as with the different structure and logistical planning of hosting workshops like these in our different settings. And I really found it a rewarding experience to connect with program leaders from all over the country, as well as to see the trainers and all the facilitators in action during the larger group sessions as well. It was a great experience.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad to hear that it felt fun to you. And Greta, this is going to be a moment where I get a perspective from you. You were actually facilitating the program leader track along with me. What might you say, like what made it fun for those program leaders who might be listening to Catherine's perspective?
I think it was fun for them because, as Jim alluded to, you know, finding a tribe when you find other people like you who've been doing what can be pretty daunting work. And for the program leaders who aren't necessarily, generally speaking, a part of the trainer cohort or the facilitator group, they're kind of on an island of their own. So to have some camaraderie among the group made it fun. Of course, Laura, you and I made it fun, but it was fun, and Krista Hirschman, but it was fun for them to just have that connection and dig in a really interactive way.
Yeah, thank you. And August, I really want to hear from you, and I'm going to actually tee you up to be first to address our next question, which is to help people think that as a facilitator or trainer attending the summit, what kind of skills or areas of development might someone develop? What might you expect to learn if you're a facilitator or a trainer coming to the summit?
Yeah, that's a great question. Let me just throw in one tiny answer to the prior question that I was thinking about. I was really impressed with helping to facilitate the facilitators in my small group, which was to sometimes learn some best practices. Here are people from all over the country doing this same work at their home institutions. And not only is this exciting rejuvenation of finding a larger tribe other than your fellow facilitators at home, but from facilitators in other parts of the country, learning what's worked for them and their audience. And I found that I brought a couple tricks back to my own work at Yale from the last facilitator summit that we had. But I guess that also tees me up to provide an answer to the question you posed, which is this is a bit of a learner-centered process. Facilitators show up and say, you know, this happens and I'm never quite sure how to manage it, or I had a participant who challenged me in this way, and what do you think I should have said? And we've been able to set up role plays around some of these facilitation challenges or other things that, you know, people might say, oh, the integrated case or the difficult case at the end of the workshop. I've always had a little trouble facilitating that. And so we can set up a simulation in our small group where people get a chance to practice those skills and maybe learn how to message or language a particular part of the workshop and really feel much more confident about it at the end.
That's really helpful. And just like facilitators or trainers experienced when they were becoming trainers, this is a more advanced version of that to really dig in. And I'm glad you're pointing out how interactive and practice-based it is. Jim, as our other faculty representative, what else might you offer about the experience or skills that trainers will get in this session?
So there are a couple of other things too that I noted happening at the last session, and that was the opportunity to update some of the trainers. So if the one-day course was developed some years ago, potentially, or even if it was recently done but was highly customized to your institution, it's really nice to learn new ideas or new updates, to get a download of some of the newer literature that's being put into the most updated ACH one-day course. So it's really nice to have the opportunity to learn or to update the skills. And then also as a practice opportunity, we're finding that many of the facilitators, after their training, they're really only co-facilitating or solo facilitating, and they're not as often getting the opportunity to really practice and stretch their own learning in an environment that's designed for it. So it's really nice to update, and then also to have them, you know, be able to really work on themselves rather than always trying to facilitate work for others.
Yeah, thank you. That's really helpful to imagine. And it gives me a chance to say that ACH as an organization has spent much of the last several months updating our materials. So the most recent version of the one-day workshop, skills cards, other kind of facilitation tools, and we're going to be making those updated versions available to our summit attendees and our Train the Trainer community as of January. So we're really excited about that and are continuing to do some updates. So that will be another good opportunity. Cindy, I'd love to invite you to speak to this as someone who came as a facilitator or trainer for the first time this past January. What skills or development opportunities did you experience or did you notice others experiencing?
Yeah, thank you very much, Laura. I think you, just to echo a little bit what Elizabeth said, I think personally, it was the opportunity for me to continue to work on my skills. But beyond that, I think we also noticed this idea of learning how other institutions enact the workshop, and it is slightly different than the way we do. But that was really rich learning and ideas for us to take away. But the other thing I really, I think, took away was this idea of understanding the dynamics that a facilitator, or the multiple dynamics a facilitator has to pay attention to. So not only the skills, right, that the learner is working on, but what's happening in your small group, with the dynamics, what is happening. Actually, had a trainer in training, I guess you call it, in the session that I was at, and I was just struck by the intentionality that person was talking about with the dynamics at the facilitator level that was going on and beyond. So having those multiple layers, it was just a reminder. It enhanced my awareness. And when I go out now in workshops, I pay attention to those levels of dynamics.
That's really helpful. And Jim and August, as faculty who did and will facilitate at the summit, what else might you add to this idea of the development or skill expectation trainers who attend might expect?
This is August. I would just again reiterate that it's an opportunity if a facilitator has a specific question or issue that they want to practice on. It's an opportunity for them to bring that to the group and not only benefit from whatever expertise Jim or I or the other facilitators might have, but more importantly, from your fellow RCC facilitators across the country, what advice they might give. There's a wealth of experience in this small group that we can really mine or tap into. And I think it's very, very exciting to bring a problem or an issue and then have people really, provide input on what they found as a solution or offer suggestions.
And then on top of that, if we have a minute, Laura, there's also the opportunity for, I know that when the trainers that I've worked with have gone through the training, they're so focused on getting the content down and understanding what's happening with the nuts and bolts of the one-day course and getting the feedback right and making good observations. What we find is after that becomes very easy for them over time to do, then their eyes can open to a whole nother level of skill development, such as recognizing goals of individual learners or being able to customize the content for the audience that they have. And it's really easy to pick up those really nice nuanced pieces that make your one-day course pop, from other people who do it and practicing it in the friendly environment of co-learners.
Yeah, that's a great reflection, Jim, on what we mean when we say advanced facilitation skills track. Like that's kind of the first facilitator's breakout track, and it really is about getting a deeper dive into being a more expert facilitator. So I'm glad to hear you reiterate that. And this idea of community is important. And I'm going to shift to another question to really focus on those people who might be attending from the program leader perspective, because it really is a neat chance to forge community with other people at other institutions. We have about 25 systems or hospitals who have chosen to become local programs. And so you really get a chance to cross-pollinate from people all across the country. So I'd love to kick it off and ask Catherine to speak to this from her experience. And then we're going to also hear from Greta, who is taking lead on organizing the track this year. And we're going to do some different things in 2020 than what we did in 2019. Let's start with Catherine. And from your perspective, what did you notice and what might benefit people who are program leaders attending that track?
Yeah, thanks, Laura. I would say we were pretty new going into the session this past year. And so what I went in to do was really be a sponge and learn how the countless other sites have been using these skills and how they've really been leading operations around it. We've had the added complexity of having sites across the country. And so it was a really good opportunity to hear from the sites who have been doing it for a long time how they built sustainability with their programs and really figured out the nuances of supporting a program from an administrative level. And then we were also able to connect with people who had a more national sort of structure to their system as well. And so we could share notes, and if we didn't have answers to the questions that the collective group had, we had the opportunity to brainstorm and really tease out some of those key problem areas or maybe opportunity areas that everybody was thinking about, and then split off into those subject areas and really dig deep to figure out what it was that worked about how certain programs are doing it, and what else we could offer in terms of ideas for how to augment whatever a group was doing. So it was a really intense session, I think, but it was so worthwhile. I think everybody had different ideas and ways to share how they troubleshoot different issues with their program, and then we were all able to collectively brainstorm just different ways to approach using these skills and supporting our trainers in these different areas. So a well-rounded experience and very well facilitated by Greta, Laura, and Krista throughout the whole conference that we were there.
Yeah, thank you, Catherine. The thing that really jumps out at me is the idea that you came when you were still pretty fresh in terms of your own program launch. And so that will be true for some people. Some people have more experience than others as program leaders. You now have a very robust year of learning under your belt. And you are an example of someone who will get a chance to share some of your lessons. So I'm going to turn over to Greta and let her say a few words about what to expect out of this year's track for program leaders, and you know, kind of a preview of how you'll get to learn from people with more experience now, like Catherine.
Thank you, Laura. Jim said something really pertinent to what I envision as being some of the key takeaways or tangibles from the program leaders track, which is when we're working with a program to implement all the pieces and moving parts of how to get this to be an operational part of their institutional fold, they get so focused on getting it set up that this summit allows them the opportunity to take it to the next level. And as Catherine said, dig deeper with what are other people doing, or where can they refine certain pieces of their messaging strategy or their enrollment process and make tweaks that will make the program even more successful. And in light of that, what we hope to build upon in terms of what we learned through last year's structure and how to advance program leaders learning for this year is through a series of a couple of structured activities and discussions. So we intend to have some panel discussions where we'll invite program leaders from across the country to do some discussion about how they enroll people, what systems do they use, what hasn't worked, how they reinforce skills, or have they deployed some type of coaching program and how do they measure outcomes of their program. All topics that we hear our program partners talk about through the year as being opportunities for them to learn more. Additionally, we hope for some group brainstorming sessions or focus groups, as we've called it on the agenda, where we intend to allow for the type of learning that Catherine described, which is really thinking about a change approach to the program challenges you face, such as getting leadership buy-in, engaging your trainers on a different level, and being a part of that work. And finally, there will be some interactive presentations by a few of our programs to take a more longitudinal look at how their programs have evolved over time and all the aspects that have set them up for success and the barriers they've faced and hopefully overcome. So we kind of view those three pieces as the scaffolding to this program this year, and ultimately hope that people will walk away with the sentiment that Catherine described.
Yeah, and to wrap up this segment, Catherine, any brief final word about your experience as a program leader and those who are thinking about coming?
I guess I would just reiterate that I think everybody can get something from it no matter where they are within their program development. There are people who have been there for so long, but they still took something away, or maybe were in the process of re-envisioning what they were working on. And we were able to kind of bring fresh perspectives as a new program, but also they were able to think about things from a different lens because of where they were at with their program. So I really do think it was applicable to every person in this session for all of our discussions.
And for those who are interested in the colleague conversation with colleagues branch of this year's summit, this program leader track will be an opportunity for those who want to kind of break into smaller pods and focus groups to think about things like implementing refresher courses, such as the conversations with colleagues. So really practical based opportunity. And as we wrap up our time together, I'd love to take the final few minutes to just mention that we're going to provide this as a recording, and we will circulate it to all, and we encourage those of you who were listening in to forward it to your colleagues who are also trainers or program leaders, so that they can also learn more about what the experience may be like. And I'll give a quick final word from any of our web representatives who have joined us today. Cindy and August on the phone, maybe we'll check in with you if you have any final brief statements before we close.
This is August. I'll just jump in and say it's a wonderful opportunity to meet colleagues who share your passion for this work. And as Jim said, it's very re-energizing and frankly affirming as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Cindy, any final word from you?
Well, I just echo what Augusta said. It's just well worth your time to go and join this wonderful community.
Yeah, thank you. Catherine and then Jim, any final words from you?
Just it's a lot of fun, so definitely invite people out, and I think everybody will get a lot out of it.
Thank you. And Jim, we're going to give you the last representative word.
Thanks, Laura. I think if you're intending to come to the conference or considering it, I think the best part of the conference is when people do come and they bring what they know, and then they bring their curiosity to pick up what other people know. And that's really when the conference works. So I think if you're planning to come, I would say come 100% and bring people that you feel comfortable with, that you can stand up in front of the group with and say, this is who we are and this is what we know, because that's how it works.
Yeah, thank you. Lovely closing statement. And we'll be sending follow-up and continuing to message about this so that you know how to register and how to get to the summit in January. So thank you all for joining. I'm really grateful for the perspectives that were shared, and we look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, Laura, for facilitating.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.